This is Wednesday, and we are on week 4, believe it or not. BCA-101 Introduction to Computers. We got into our groups and did a little review of Unit 1. Basically, we reviewed some of the objectives questions, actually the questions at the end of the unit, and talked a little bit about those. Unit 2, we talked about productivity software today, a little bit. The students did a little work on assignment number 2, word processing, covered a couple of key items, and I talked about the project. I suggested there's 3 parts to the project. You have a document to update, then there's a Google Doc to update, and then some type of presentation that you can do, that you need to do. So there's 3 things. So when you submit it, you need to be cautious and make sure everything gets submitted appropriately. And if you have questions, you need to let me know. I got just a couple more slides. Technology, does it run our lives? We talked a little bit about that. Some people talk about being addicted to their phones. I said, you know, do we have less face-to-face communications because we're using our phones? I talked a little bit about the book, iGens, just briefly. We talked about a little bit of data from that. We could talk a little more about that later on. Internet of Things, there's so many connections. Matt mentioned smart homes and so forth. I asked, do you spend more or less? Do you have more or less time because of technology? And the way it looked to me, there was only one student who said he has a lot more time because technology has made his life easier. I thought that was interesting. I thought there'd be more than that. Canvas, is Canvas good for your education, or are there any drawbacks? We really didn't discuss that. I just left that out there. I wrote this on the board, asked them how many people understood what I was talking about. George Jetson. Anyway, if you don't know, you can look it up. We mentioned artificial intelligence. Tim Cook. Tim Cook is CEO of that's supposed to be an Apple. Oh, here's what I should have done. Does that look more like an Apple now? Okay, enough fooling around here. Tim Cook, I don't have the quote exactly, but somebody asked him, you know, is computers going to become like humans with artificial intelligence? And he said, really, computers will never be just like humans. He says, our problem is humans are becoming more like computers. I thought, that's worth thinking about. I thought it was good. I also mentioned this issue. There has been some research in the last few years. This is a couple years old, and they're talking about approximately 4 to 12-year-old kids. Issues with technology, and most people think, oh, geez, parents are letting them use technology. No, the problem is the parents. The parents are ignoring their kids because they're on their phones, or the technology tends to invade their lives. Right? Right, what Tim Cook said. Our own experiences. Can you live a couple weeks without your phone? Last thing here on this page, we had word processing. There's a golden spot, you know, on paper, where if you were just handed a paper or a magazine or something, your eyes tend to go to this spot. Now, there's research to prove that. I don't have sources, so you could ignore what I'm saying if you don't trust me, but anyway, so like people would target ads, they put a picture of something. In this case, it's a bottle, and the liquor in this case was running into this pretty shot glass. Right here was the brand name. So most people would do this. Their eye would go here, you'd follow the stream, you'd see the brand name, and you'd go to the next page. And there may be some text and so forth here that most people won't read. Word processing can do a lot to influence you based on how you design the document. Now, this course is not designed, it's not designed to talk about that, but we did in word processing. We do a little bit. Word processing and presentation software, you want to convey information, right? You're either doing it on a page. This page could be paper. It could be from a website. You know, it could be, this information can be, you know, sound, video, whatever. We'll talk about those later on. But this allows us to arrange it in a way. Okay, so for example, when I underline those items up here, when people read work that's underlined, there's kind of a magic line here. Most people, when they read the top half of the letters, because you can read much faster. And if you think about that, if you take a whole bunch of words and cover the bottom quarter and look at the top, you could read it. But if you covered the top quarter, it's pretty hard to read. We read, especially we read fast, read the top. So when it's underlined, it slows us down. When it's all caps, it slows us down. And sometimes you want to slow down people. Sometimes you want to speed people up. If you want somebody to get bored and quit reading, all caps or underline large quantities of text. People get impatient nowadays. I want to read. All right. I better finish up. Last thing today. No. Yeah, I'll make a couple other points here. Productivity software. Word processing. I just beat that to death. Next thing we talk about are spreadsheets, managing data, which is a big deal. We're going to, hopefully, by the end of the course, we're going to do some data analytics. Here we'll learn about spreadsheets, okay? And we cover graphics here, and then add them to here. And we finish up productivity software with databases, the last thing. There is one other item we do in between here. After midterm, we do some HTML and some web representation of data. So we look at more specifically how web sites work. Okay. Well, that almost wraps it up. Okay. Productivity software. We will take a look at, I think it'll be interesting, we'll take a look at productivity software. We have Microsoft Word, we have Google Docs has not this, but it has the rest of this capabilities. There's packages for Apple, and there's open source packages. Okay, we talked about proprietary software like Microsoft Word, and then we have some open source software that we'll look at some examples on Friday to finish this up and talk about the web and the good, the bad, and the ugly maybe. That's it. One last point. Read my comments on all your work, especially in this case, the assignments. Okay, you get all the points for the assignments, so you got the 5 points, and you think, yeah, got my 5, I'm going to move on. But you need to read the comments because you get the credit if you were close in getting the information correct. But I'll make some comments about what you need to improve on before you finish and turn in the project. That is it for today.